I'm Casey.
Huh?
I'm Casey.
Sorry, I'm texting my boyfriend Bill.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear? He dumped his dumb old wife so he could give me $100 billion.
Really? I didn't
Have you
know.
been following the Bill Gates, Melinda Gates divorce?
Oh my god, I thought you were just doing a random bit.
No!
I did hear that they are getting a divorce. No, I don't know why.
I don't know why either, but Bill Gates could be back on Tinder. We don't know.
He's gonna get you $100 billion.
Honestly, you wouldn't go gay for $100 billion?
Maybe.
I mean, it's not like 100 million.
Right.
Like, quantify that, you know?
Yeah.
100 million at least times another 100 million.
Billion, yeah. I've been on the Spend Bill Gates Money website.
God, you can't do it.
You can't.
You literally, no matter how hard you try, you could not spend all that fucking money.
He literally, I figured out you can buy the entirety of the NFL, or the NBA, or one of them. Anyway, one of them has like 36 teams, or 32 teams. You can buy all 32 teams and you would still have a gargantuan amount of money left.
Dude, people like to say Bill Gates is a philanthropist, you know, he's a decent guy. But Bill Gates is another whiny billionaire. Like, whenever AOC's, like, tax plan was being introduced, Bill Gates was like, how's that fair? I have $97 billion, and it would leave me with $7 billion for my wealth. What's a man to do? It's like $7 billion. Can you spend that in a lifetime?
For his wealth, though.
For his wealth.
That's not even counting, like, his, like, you know, like, I assume he means $7 billion for himself.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's great that you give away so much money to foundations.
Right.
What kind of undermines that fact is you make that back in, like,
a
month. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you donate half your wealth, you're going to regenerate it.
Yeah.
Like, Bill Gates, like, don't get the homie wrong. During the COVID pandemic, he's getting just as rich as everyone else. Mm-hmm. I mean, Microsoft Teams, like, swooped in there. Like, you know, somehow Microsoft Teams has also overtaken Skype, which is so funny. Remember Skype?
Yes. I remember Skype.
Talk about blowing a lead. I mean,
right.
My God. Zoom, where did you even come from? We all use that shit.
Right? Oh, God. But, hopefully maybe he can donate to the podcast.
Dude, that would be great. I mean, once I secure this bag and get him in the palm of my hand. I mean,
exactly.
We've got unlimited podcast money. We've got a studio.
Yeah.
We've got...
buy a whole building in LA and we'll call it the Mind Over Movies headquarters.
We could get 2 mics for the show. 2 mics.
Exactly.
Maybe even a third if we're feeling ambitious. That's what Bill Gates money does for us.
That's the next thing I'm going to be investing for us. I'm going to start a crowdfunding for Mind Over Movies to get a second mic.
Maybe I'm not that creative, but what would you even spend? Like, if you had access to that much money, like, what's the first thing you think of buying?
Like $7 billion or like $97 billion?
No, like any amount of Bill Gates' money. What's the first thing you think about buying?
I would buy shit. I don't know. Like, I'd buy a drum set, like a really good electric drum set, put in my house. Those are like a couple $1,000 for a really good one. And then I'd buy a camera, or I'd buy camera equipment to go shoot movies.
By golly.
Yeah, but, I mean, shit, that's only like maybe, you know, $50,000 for really good equipment altogether. Like, you still have $1 million left.
Billions and billions left even. Like, I'm not even that creative.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought was gaming computer, and then I was like, what am I doing after I get that gaming computer?
Exactly. Like, what do you do with the money after you get what you get?
Like, it's just like, I guess I put it in savings and use it for rent. But then also, I guess I don't really have to work another day in my life.
Right.
I just get depressed thinking about it. It's like, what is my life now that I have $97 billion, you know? What do I even do? Speaking of doing stuff, did you do some stuff? Did you see some shit?
This actually, I'm glad we're talking about getting an insane amount of wealth because it actually ties into something I was going to talk about today with like movies and TV shows.
Whoa!
So, this is going to be a long path to get where I need to get, but I need to ask some questions and talk about a couple things first.
Okay.
Are you familiar with USA's procedural television shows? They had like a golden age of procedural shows.
Okay, so I know that there are a couple that I need to see. The main one is like Monk, which has been recommended to me for like ever, and I just haven't watched. Is that on something?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, I'm looking for a show right now.
Okay.
I'm flirting with some stuff. So that needs to be the one.
That needs to be the one, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
So, for those of you who don't know, I was going to talk about Monk today. Monk is...
I didn't even know that was the
I know.
one. Okay.
Monk is one of my favorite television shows of all time. Like, probably just one of the thing that makes me the happiest in this world is Monk and Tony Shalhoub as Monk. But it's for those of you that don't know, it's a USA, the TV channel. They had a bunch of... Like, there was a golden age from, like, it started with Monk in 2002 and all the way to, like, 2010. They had all these shows, like Psych, Burn Notice.
Psych is another.
And Monk was one of them. And there was another really good one that everybody talks about. Can't remember the name. Either way, those are just some of the handful of shows they had. Well, I'd recently started rewatching Monk. And, like, Monk is, like, a masterclass in acting. Okay, it's nominated for 18 Primetime Emmy Awards, and it won 8 of them.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And there was actually a funny thing that happened where Tony Shalhoub won the Emmy for Best Outstanding Actor in, like, a television show. And he made a joke to all the other nominees. He's like, don't worry, guys, there's next year. And he was the only one to get nominated again next year out of that entire group.
Oh, poor people.
Yeah, so it's a great show. It's a awesome detective show. But I was watching it, and it made me think about other TV shows. And it also ties into, like, I was looking at, like, thought experiments the other day. There's the famous, like, essay, I guess, or the thought experiment that we are probably in a simulation, right? And I was thinking of, like, TV shows. If you think about, especially, it's really sitcoms, right? If you look at sitcoms and something happens, like, for example, in Monk, he solves a case. And at the end, one of the characters ends up winning the lottery. He like had won the lottery, and that's why somebody had tried to kill him. And the lottery was like $435 million. And as a thank you to Monk and his caretaker or his assistant Sharona, which is always stated that Sharona's always in financial like crisis. That's why they like don't take jobs for free anymore. She mentions in one of the episodes, and they get paid, to do the jobs and stuff. And he gives her an envelope, and he says, just a little thank you for helping me out. And I'm like, holy shit, he probably just gave her like $500,000 or $1 million. That could like change her position in the show financially. And when she opens it, she's like, $400? Like, are you kidding me? She's like, we saved his life. And it's like a really funny moment. But then I thought about that in other TV shows, whenever there's a chance for a character to win a massive amount of wealth, to win like a new house, or their house like is burns down and they need to get a new one, they're this close to winning a mansion, something that changes their lives and could alter the course, like the show like tells them no, like the writers will write it out. And as a kid, to me, that was so fucking infuriating. But then obviously it would change like how they would do the show. Like it was like, oh, we got to remember that this character's rich now. What would they do? But at the same time, I'm like, it reminds me of like, we're in a simulation because I pulled out of Dogecoin at 34 cents. And now it's up to 69 cents. That's something that could have helped me out financially. And now it's slipped away from me like a fucking writer in writer's room just laughing his ass off right now. Yeah. Like, anyway, it's just a lot of thoughts going through my head about that. I don't know, what's your take?
Okay, well, so first thing is, I used you as a little broker for Dogecoin, so I think I was the one who texted you. I was like, it's up to 69 cents now. We're a bunch of silly idiots. You invested very early. You were 10 cents?
No, I invested at 4 cents. Like back in January.
You are straight up.
And I know I'm an idiot.
No, I'm kidding. But you probably made decent back.
No, I made a decent money, yeah. It could have been doubled, though.
It's me that invested at like 30 cents.
Yeah.
And then, it climbed up to like 46 and we didn't pull out. And then it went to like 34 and you were like, hey, it looks like it's crashing. And it did crash.
It did.
For a week. And then Elon Musk is set to host SNL
now, yeah.
Which, that in itself seems like such a silly simulation thing. Like, what? I don't know. But, I guess I feel your frustration. But also, I've got to ask, is Monk serialized or is it episodic? Like, whenever the new episode starts, do they just kind of ignore the last one?
So, no, they don't ignore it. So, like, I think it's called a procedural show. Mm-hmm. I think it fits in between episodic and serial, right? So it acknowledges everything that's ever happened in the show, yet it's not like a show like The Boys where each episode, it's one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, every episode is a new case. Gotcha. And the through line with it is, Monk's wife was murdered, and that's the only case he can't solve. That's why he's like, he's got these disorders and everything. It's heightened by his wife's death.
So it's not like heavily serialized, but there's like storylines that probably crop up again.
Characters come and reappear and stuff like that.
And I guess that's standard fare for procedural dramas. Mm-hmm. I do find that I guess most of the shows that are dramatic that I like to watch are for the most part serialized because I like whenever events flow into each other. And I also just like the idea that if you start at episode 1, you will be rewarded for watching every consecutive episode. You can have episodes like in Breaking Bad, like I think of like season 4 of that season where like you just started off with like Jesse being like miserable for 4 episodes and like guilt ridden and not really doing anything. And that's not something you can do in episodic television. Like, like he would maybe like kill someone in one episode and then in the next episode he'd be like, gee golly, it sure does feel great to cook meth, Mr. White. Cursed Breaking Bad image right there.
Okay. Gee golly. But yes, I know what you're saying.
Also, I do feel like we are living in a simulation too, though, jumping off of that through television. Do you watch a lot of reality TV?
I watch Gordon Ramsay's shows.
Okay, so that kind of falls into it. Because, I mean, obviously, like, heavily produced still under the guise of, like, reality.
Right.
There's a show that I love. I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but there's a show I love on Netflix so much. It's The Circle. Have you ever seen it?
Okay, people have been talking about this. It's become like a meme in recent days, hasn't it?
Yeah, I could see that. I haven't seen too many memes about it, but like it is immensely popular.
Yeah, everybody's making tweets about it,
But like the thing is like I love that show, and it's weird because I think like it feels more genuine than other reality shows, and I think it's like a big part of that is like they don't have like those confessional things where like, I totally felt like Samantha was playing me, but that kind of happens naturally in the show. Like they must be prepped a ton before they go in, because people will receive a message and then do something that like people in real life don't do when they're texting. They monologue about the text that they just received to themselves. So they'll like get a message that'll be like, hey girl, what's going on? And the Circle players will be like, oh my god, he is totally trying to kiss my butt right now. He's playing the game. He's being strategic as hell. Said, hey girl, what's up? I gotta really think about my response for this. Like there's so much drama. Like over the course of the show, not a lot happens. Like only like 5 people get sent home over the course of a season, and like 5 people stay, and then in between like eliminations and stuff like that, there's not a lot going on. Like they participate in games, which that whole idea is so silly to me because they can't see each other. They're all in their own rooms, socially distanced. They have no idea what people look like, which is one of the gimmicks of the show, or what they sound like. But yet they're doing these challenges where they have to like make the best pancake, or like they'll text each other and be like, push-up challenge, guys, even though they can't see each other. You know, like what?
I need to watch the show. I had no idea what it was about.
So I think it's fascinating though, because like part of me is like, there's no way that's real. But then the other part of me is like, some of the shit they're doing on the show is so dumb that it has to be real. Right. You know, like, people just can't make this stuff up. Like, I can't believe that someone would propose to do, like, a push-up challenge over, like, text, you know? Yeah. Like, you don't even know the other guys are doing a push-up challenge. And sure enough, in the show, like, only one of the guys actually does any fucking push-ups. And then the rest are like, yeah, I just did 20. You know?
Yeah.
But, like, how is that a thing in this world? Like, who sits there and comes up with these ideas, these, like, post-apocalyptic, like, postmodern ideas where someone can win $100,000 from being on a show like that? Like, what's up with that? How did we get to this?
It's like... So, it's weird. It's like with like money and every... The thing about the government or the simulation, you know, whichever theory you believe, whether it's the government controlling everything or we're just in a simulation.
Take Joe Rogan.
I know, right? Is the game like shows like that where like people like offer you a massive amount of wealth? Like, okay, it's like we have this job lined up for you. But you're lifting, 85-pound barrels of, like, I don't know, toxic waste for 10 hours a day, but it pays $30 an hour. So, like, in a month, you're going to have a shit ton of money. Or they can offer you $200,000 to come on this game show and make the most perfect pancake, in a room where you can't see. Like, that's so absurd that people would be like, you know what? I can do that. I can fucking do that, and I can be rich.
That's the thing. You watch the show, you think, I would be so good
exactly.
at that show.
Everybody thinks that, though. It's like, I'd be so good at that. And it's like, that's the dream that they're selling you. That's the pipe dream of,
I guess that's most American reality television. Or, like, the shows that are widely watched, like Wipeout.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, I could do those balls like no one else.
Exactly.
And I realized that that's not just me. I used to think I was so unique for thinking that I could go on Wipeout, but literally everyone, I guess, just thought they were athletic enough to be on Wipeout.
Yeah, because you watch it, you're like, that's not that hard. And I don't know, it's like, it's like you see somebody, it's like, oh, I can do that. And you try to do it. And it turns out to be harder than you do. It's the same thing with reality shows, especially game shows. Mm-hmm. Game shows are the biggest thing because that's probably the closest we have to reality TV show because nobody's really acting in a game show. They're just contestants. Although I will say Family Feud has me worried a little bit. Some of those families on there, they have to be acting. But you know what I'm saying? It's like...
I think that's why it's so immensely popular is like the idea... This is going to sound so pretentious. But the idea of the American dream in society, like as we know it, is dead. Yeah. So we look to game shows where the most popular ones in America are ones where if you work hard enough, like on the show or like before you go on the show, like something like Jeopardy even, where if you study like everything and then go on the show, you can win a vast amount of money and change your life and become a self-starter.
Exactly.
And like the thing is, in our society, most of the people that watch these shows are like on their lazy boys and like, God, why didn't life turn out good for me? But look, they're achieving their dreams. Therefore, I feel the American dream is alive. And that's crazy. That this is the way the dream is continued, you know, like in this very niche, like Ellen's like game of games.
Right.
Or fucking The Chase or whatever. It is a capitalism thing. It is a cultural thing because even look at like Great British Bake Off. Like compare every American cooking show to that. Like on those shows, you have like 30 minutes to make something, and then you compete. Someone gets eliminated, and you win like $100,000 or like $10,000 by the end of it. Okay. Great British Bake Off, they're just in the competition to like have the title of being the
Exactly.
best in the British Bake Off,
That actually brings up a good point that Donna was telling me. She saw, it was a TikTok of all things, that somebody was like, America always takes British shows and remakes them in America. It's like, why doesn't other people do that with America? It's like, because think about, the UK or Canada remaking Breaking Bad. It's like, you have cancer, but don't worry, our amazing healthcare system is going to take care of you. And I thought about that and I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Most of the great dramatic television and movies that we have here in America are exact products of our capitalist economy and our society. Like, of course the UK wouldn't remake Breaking Bad. Like, they have no fucking reason to. Like, over there, that probably seems fucking absurd, watching Breaking Bad here, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. And so it's the same thing with these game shows, the competition shows.
Wipeout in Britain, Total Wipeout, is now made into the American Wipeout as we know it. I mean, also there's Takashi's Castle, which becomes the backbone of, like, American Gladiator.
Dragon's Den and Shark Tank as well.
God. It's just like we appropriate and we make it fit into our culture. But that's the funny thing, is that we can't do that with all with all shows. Like, British comedies are some of, like, the most remade shows that don't do too well actually when they get to the States. I mean, obviously there's very famous successes like The Office, That's probably like one of the only times that, like, an American show has remade a British television show and not only succeeded, but now is probably more recognizable in its American format than the original show. But there's so many, like, British television shows that are remade in America. They air for, like, one season and they're canceled, because there's something, like, oddly, like, American cynicism, I guess. It's like, in Britain, it's like, I don't want to say it's too light, because, I mean, the shows can also be really dark humor, but, like, it's something like when it comes to America, it's this need to Americanize it that often kills the show, like, dead in its tracks. Like, that culture can't be captured in an American, like, eye. And it's not like with reality television where everything's, like, so fake. There's no culture in it anyway. It's just, like, it's so easy to appropriate it. But, like, comedy can only affect, like, people who get the joke. And if you take a British joke and you try to make it American, I mean, oftentimes it just looks like a poorly translated joke in the end. And I think that's where The Office's success came in, is they tried to copy the British show for, like, one episode. The pilot of The Office is like one of the worst reviewed episodes of the show because it's a shot-for-shot remake of the original British pilot. And then from the second episode on, they stopped. They were just like, okay, we're going to talk about the American workplace issues that relate to us, like race, and that's how they appropriate it. It's not a remake as much as it is a reimagining of those ideas. And I think, I don't know, that's just interesting. I didn't have a grander point there. It's just like, we appropriate so much, but a lot of times it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think I did that with the show. It was a show called Rake. It used to be, it used to be a British television show, and they remade it, and it only got one season here in America. And it was like about a lawyer. He was like a really scummy dude, and I don't know. I was watching it for a while because I was just into TV shows. It wasn't particularly good, but I just know that there was some translation issues there because, like, the idea of it seemed fine enough. It's sort of like, like House. Okay.
That's Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly. Well, Rake is like the lawyer equivalent of House. He's like a cynical, Anyway, but yeah, like you said, just reimagining. The Office was a reimagining and not necessarily a full-on by-the-books adaptation or remake, But yeah, interesting.
Oh, dude, I'm about to hit you with one of the smoothest transitions. You want to talk about a reimagining?
Yes, it's time to hate on the rise of Skywalker, bitches.
Okay.
Do you know Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey?
I'm a writer. I have to know
of
about
course.
it. Yeah, of course.
I mean, a lot of people are taught it in this modern idea of it. You know, there's like the 8 different stages. That's not how Joseph Campbell originally wrote it. He had 17. The version of the hero's journey we know is George Lucas's version of the hero's journey that he condensed for Star Wars. And the crazy thing is, Star Wars is pretty much like a straight off the page like ripoff of hero's journey, while also modernizing it for people, because there's a lot of silly ideas in there. Like Joseph Campbell argues like, oh, women can't go through the hero's journey like men can. Like, excuse me? We got weird about like sex. You're saying all stories have the same structure, but then you're like, but women. But women. And then also, you know, there's the casual racism and all the other worrisome bits about the 40s. But I was watching this really good video essay about Knights of the Old Republic, the game.
Yes,
KOTOR. 1 and 2, KOTOR. And it's by this guy, Noah Caldwell Gervais. And it was this really fascinating video about like how the monomyth is just like the reason we have hegemony in our culture. Like why all of our like dramatic like and very popular material is all the same is we all use this formula. The hero's journey was made as a critique that there's so much hegemony, there's so much like parallels in stories, and it like definitely overgeneralized. But then now the ironic thing is that it's been copied and pasted into like the most popular media of all time. Right. And it might be fair to say that Star Wars might be the most popular media of all time. Yeah. Yeah.
At least one of them. Or it's actually no, it is probably the most popular.
All of it. No matter what iteration of Star Wars you get. I mean, it's bound to be wildly successful. I mean, except for Solo.
True.
Solo. I think Solo is the only one that's really tanked at the box office, though. I think
everything else has at least made their money back. I think.
Well, and then a shitload on top of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure Solo had like merchandise that did okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a black sheep in the franchise.
It is.
But I was thinking a lot about this idea of the monomyth and about the hero's journey, because Kennedy and I finished Rise of Skywalker, ironically, on May 4th. So it was like a way to celebrate Star Wars Day. And the emptiness of that movie and the contradictions in it, I've been sitting with them all week. Like, I've been thinking, there are a lot of story beats in that movie that, like, would clarify, you know, a satisfying ending. Like, a character arc has occurred there. Like, there is a ton of shit going on in that movie. Like, Rise of Skywalker does not suffer from, like, lack of effort. I think what I realized, though, this week after watching this video essay is that why Rise of Skywalker is so weird and, like, oddly paced and frustrating is that the hero's journey has been re-implemented into Star Wars when it had been torn down in just the last movie. Right. Because I told you we watched Last Jedi and we hadn't talked about it yet. But I think that these movies are perfect companion pieces because one of them is the champion of the hero's journey, the Star Wars formula as we know it, and George Lucas's idea of it. And I think the other one comes from an equally loving place for Star Wars. But it's something that says, like, the hero's journey isn't a guiding principle to everything. Like, you can escape that journey. It turns out that it's a journey that has a bunch of overgeneralizations, and it doesn't really think about what comes after it. Like, even in Greek myth, you know, once like, Odysseus returns home from his, like, 17-year-long trip, like, what happens after? Like, he's in his 40s. He has, like, a long life left to live. What happens? And what a lot of writers have presumed in these myths is that, well, the idea of the mythical hero falls apart and you have a human left. I think, sorry, I'm rambling a lot.
No, it's okay.
Feel free to come in. But with Odysseus, you know, he returns home, he kills all the people that want to fuck his wife, and he's like, son, Telegonus, or Telemachus, I can't remember his son's name. Right. I think he has two. Yeah. He's like, dude, I'm back. And, you know, the story is a happy ending. But then what happens immediately after that myth? The son's like, I don't even know you, dude. I'm like a grown-ass man. And you've been, like, at war or on the sea all my life. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And also, you just killed all of these people, like, stone cold. And I read this really great book this year, Circe by Madeline Miller, and she reimagines, like, a lot of Greek mythology. And her version of Odysseus really reminded me of Luke Skywalker because he goes, like, fucking senile after he returns home. Like, he doubts everyone in his life, you know. The fact that his wife got so close to suitors while he was gone for so long, like the fact that he wasn't there to protect her. He's paranoid that everyone's scheming against him. And then one day, his other son that he doesn't know about, comes to visit him to tell him, like, hey, I'm your son, I love you, let's live a happy life together. And what gets him killed is that he's so angry and overcome with paranoia that he attacks his son as soon as he gets there. And he won't listen to reason, and he's accidentally stabbed by this blade that, like, kills people instantly, and he dies. And he's undone by his own thing. But I was just thinking, Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi is that mythological figure. Right. You know, because he goes through the hero's journey in the original trilogy, and it's brilliant, you know. Like that's a solid story right there. Yeah. But the fact is, what the fuck happens after? Exactly. You've got Luke Skywalker in his 20s. He's risen to the most powerful position. He is our new Greek hero. Right. So, like, what does he do? And, okay, so he makes a Jedi Order, but the Jedi Order fails again. Like, he is a character filled with so much hubris that he's like, I will succeed where no other Jedi has succeeded before. It's like total act of pride to think that the Jedi Order would go better than it did the last time. Yeah. And then when it doesn't, what does he do? He exiles himself and he throws a fit. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable way to go with that character. Like, why would he still be stoic? He's like, well, my star pupil killed everyone and I founded a dead order, so I'm really actually ecstatic to see you, Rey. Like, I can't wait to train you because clearly that's a really cool thing to happen. He's knocked down a peg in that moment. He's no longer myth. He's human. And the hero's journey has been, you know, circumvented. It's like, well, fuck. He did the lap. He did the whole lap, and he's right back at the start again. Right. Like, oh, no. Yeah. And I think that's why people hate Last Jedi so much. Is like,
oh, definitely.
Especially with Luke. It's like, this guy is a mythical figure. Why is he being rude to her? Or, like, why is he not taking up the sword to go fight the Empire? And it's like, reason through this for a second. Why should he? Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's probably the thing that jarred me the most about watching The Last Jedi, like when I first watched it, was he just takes the fucking lightsaber and just throws it behind his back. And I was like, well, we waited, you know, a year to see that. Yeah. And then, like, watching the rest of the movie, just seeing how disgruntled and senile he had become. It's like when somebody tells you, it's like, okay, at the end of you're like, what the fuck happens next? Hollywood's answer to that question has always been make a sequel. Unless it's a movie where the character is, like, has a definite end. Like, he's either dead or he sacrifices himself, something like that. Their answer always is to make a sequel. But with Star Wars setting out to make a sequel, they're like, okay, well, we'll just restart his hero's journey, I guess, is what... I don't know what JJ had planned.
I mean, that's kind of what Force Awakens seems like, though.
Exactly.
Because Luke Skywalker, I mean, to probably a lesser extent than Rian Johnson took it, he is in exile. You know, that thing remains. Like, he's at square one again. But I think what J.J. Abrams has planned is like, okay, he's going to be the wise mentor and start Rey's hero's journey and at the same time go on a bit of his own.
Exactly.
And so it's upsetting to the viewer because we've seen this whole show before. We've seen Obi-Wan do this. We've seen Yoda do this with Luke. Yeah. You know, like when Luke gets to Dagobah, Yoda plays hard to get at first, but what changes is that he stops playing hard to get. He's like, oh, okay, train you, I will. But then, of course, like that arc completes and Yoda becomes the wise master we used to know him as and then dies in Return of the Jedi. And Luke is better off for having met him. So do you think like it is maybe that fact that Luke never has that change of heart with Rey, but it's more like an internal thing? Like he's no wise mentor. He's like
right.
the opposite of Obi-Wan, you know?
Well,
he's like, what the fuck? Like, don't go fight the Empire, you fucking idiot. Like, the Jedi... the Jedi has always been a stupid idea, and they've failed hundreds of times, and I'm the most recent example. Like, I thought I could be better, and I failed too, so let me just save you some pain, kid. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what it is it's just like what you learn in like, okay, so like every screenwriting class I've ever been in, every time the hero's journey is mentioned, it's not an audible like groan, but you just feel it. You know, everybody, and I feel it. I'm like, God, it's such an overused, overplayed out. It's literally it's the formula for the last 2 centuries. It's not the formula for now. If you look about what's in a postmodern, you know, society within entertainment, nobody wants to fucking go by that anymore. So what Rian Johnson is, and I believe this is in your notes, he's like a liberal, you know?
Yeah.
JJ is the traditionalist. Ryan is the you know, kind of push the progressive. He didn't want to write a movie in the hero's journey outline. That's why The Last Jedi is so different, and that's what pisses all the fans off, because they know the formula and they know what's supposed to happen. Even I did, watching The Force Awakens, thinking about in the second one, I'm like, okay, I may not know all the questions that they proposed in this movie, but I know what's going to happen because it's the hero's journey. Where I recognize this, I understand it, and everybody does. You don't have to be a writer to fucking point out what you're seeing. Like, that's why the fans were so pissed, is because they subconsciously knew what the prequel trilogy did and what the original trilogy did, and the sequel trilogy. Rian Johnson said, "No, not doing it this time.
Yeah.
I'm not going by that," which is fine, but you know, it pissed a lot of people off. But yeah,
I think, and what I think is like, people always say like, oh, he's just subverting expectations for the sake of. Like, I actually think like that's a really challenging position to take, and I don't think he's just trying to subvert expectations. I think that when he was faced with the script and the story of Force Awakens, he was like, okay, let's get jazzy with it. You know, he's playing improv with J.J. Abrams, and let me tell you, Rian Johnson is a pretty good improv partner, because he's like, yes, but I think a lot of it came across as being disrespectful and rude and saying no. Right. Like, the fact that Luke has his arms stretched out like that, like, J.J. Abrams clearly shot that, like, oh, Luke's gonna say some wise-ass, dope-ass shit. And that's one of the most bothersome things about Last Jedi to me, is when you see shots that we previously saw in Force Awakens, they look completely different. They look like, and not in a good way, you know, it's not like this looks different, and because it's a new director, it looks like, a lot of the times it looks cheaper. Like when Luke has his hand stretched out to Rey in Last Jedi before he takes the lightsaber and chucks it. Like, I don't know, that shit looks weird. Like if you just came out of Force Awakens too, it's like, what happened to like the epic like drone shot? And I guess it just establishes very early on, like, oh, we're not doing that epic tone shit no more. We're telling a human story. And I guess maybe that's where the big divergence comes in, is if you want Star Wars to be about your great mythological figures or about your humans. I think where that also carries is Rey. Like, I think that Rey started out as, like, you know, this mysterious, like, deity in J.J. Abrams' like first movie. Is she's very powerful. You don't know the source of her power, and he's definitely got this mystery box where he's got the ultimate parent reveal. It's going to be like some great lineage. Like, maybe she's a Kenobi. Who knows? But then, you know, you open that mystery box and you're like, well, shit, you know, no answer could really be all that satisfying, because the most satisfying answer to this question was in the original trilogy. Luke opened the mystery box and Darth Vader was his fucking father, and that was the most amazing reveal ever. So why would you even try? And Rian Johnson is like, I'm not going to try. We've done the whole father revealed thing. And so that's what I think I love about Last Jedi, is even though the execution isn't always the best, the moments that are strong to me are all the ones involving Rey, because she's taken from this typical deity Luke Skywalker mirror character and put into this human role. Like, she's like, who am I? Do I have worth without being a deity? And it's like an examination of the hero's journey, because she's like, I'm not following the steps, and therefore I don't know if I have any inherent value. And by the end of the movie, hopefully you're like, well, even though her parents are nobodies, which is the most devastating answer she could have heard at that point, just like Luke hearing Darth Vader was his father, was the most devastating answer. Like, if Kylo Ren had been like, oh, bro, you're my sister, Han Solo and Leia are your parents, she would have been like, that is cool as fuck. And that wouldn't have been very satisfying.
No.
Well, it wouldn't have been very dramatic.
Right.
So what Rian Johnson does is he raises the stakes, and he's like, her worst fears are true in this moment. That she's no one. That she doesn't have a lineage. And it's interesting because he sets it up from there. It's like, how will that affect her? Let's find out in the next movie. And he raises his own hand with lightsaber in hand to J.J. Abrams. And I mean, he does the same thing with Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, I think, is like the most telegraphed Darth Vader clone of all time. Like, I like his role in Force Awakens. Like, I think he's a very sophisticated villain, and I think that he's a much better version of Anakin Skywalker.
Definitely.
What George Lucas was trying to go for. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that from Force Awakens, he's telegraphed to have a redemption arc, to be a second-hand man to the Emperor figure being Snoke. And so that's what I really like about Last Jedi, is that we just do away with the Emperor figure. Like, they're like, who's Snoke? Doesn't fucking matter, because he's just filling a role to drive the story into the hero's journey again. Because we want Kylo Ren to have a very obvious redemption arc. And he says, no, Kylo Ren in this moment is going to defy the story beat you know. Because after he kills Snoke, what do you expect? You expect him to be like, okay, Rey, we're pals now. Because that's what happened with Darth Vader. He threw the Emperor down a fucking Death Star shaft and was like, I love you, son.
Right.
So that's even more dramatic, too. It's like, if Kylo Ren had redeemed himself in that moment, what are the fucking stakes anymore?
Yeah.
You know? Like, the series has no villain.
Yeah.
So instead he decides to become the villain of the story in that moment. And that's what makes it so great, is that before that moment, he's been like a half villain, an anti-hero at best. Like, you're not sure if he's committed or has any convictions, and then boom, Kylo Ren is born, Ben Solo is dead, and he doesn't need the stupid fucking helmet. You know? He's villainous enough. He's his own person. I think Last Jedi is brilliant because it releases this sequel trilogy from being enslaved to the original trilogy. Like, finally, the bonds are cut, and it's its own thing.
Yeah.
In comes Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
That's its whole purpose, is to become enslaved to the original trilogy again.
Yeah.
Like, from the opening text, the dead speak. Emperor Palpatine is back.
Most annoying opening crawl in any Star Wars movie ever is Rise of Skywalkers.
And what's so frustrating is we're back to square one on the fucking hero's journey, and we try and, I don't know the word that I'm looking for.
Okay.
We try to fit it into one movie. We try to cram it all in there.
Yeah.
Like, the whole cycle. And it's
sloppy
as hell.
It's like it just stopped halfway through for Rian Johnson. JJ's like, wait. And he's like pushing it with all his force to get it, to the end in one movie.
And so, like, you have, like, that opening scene where you don't even know where the fuck Kylo Ren is, and he's just, like...
Slaying some Ewok-looking fuckers, yeah.
And within 3 minutes, he's on Exegol, and...
Yeah.
Who else but Emperor Palpatine, and what's that he's got in the tank? It's Snoke clones.
Yeah.
You know?
God. And to top it off, it's a MacGuffin movie.
Oh,
it's a MacGuffin movie.
You gotta find the Wayfinder.
To quote Hitchcock, the MacGuffin is the thing on the screen that the characters have to get that the audience doesn't give a shit about. There's the worst way, to end a trilogy, or to take back the metaphorical lightsaber that Johnson has handed off to him that we've been using. It's the worst way.
It's the toss.
It's the toss.
Yeah, it's like how Luke Skywalker just throws it over his head. J.J. Abrams went, what you got there, Ryan? And he was like, oh, actually, I got the third movie lined up for you.
Here you go.
It's so infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, so efficient at undoing everything so quickly. And, like, J.J. Abrams has come out and said, like, oh, I respect Rian Johnson so much. I love The Last Jedi. I think it's such a strong script. I love Rose. But the movie speaks for itself. The story structure speaks for itself. And the most infuriating thing is, it comes from a place of love. Like, this is what J.J. Abrams really does think is best for Star Wars. I think when he saw the fan reaction to Last Jedi, he went, okay, this is my baby. I gotta shepherd it back to where it needs to be, which is the hero's journey, which is the arc of the original trilogy condensed into one movie. And so you have a lot of like weird like elements of New Hope brought back in because, you know, what Rian Johnson did is he kind of rearranged the trilogy. We went from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like that was what fucking Last Jedi is. It's a parallel to Return of the Jedi, and then it's interesting because where do you go from Return of the Jedi? You know, and how J.J. Abrams says it is, it's like, oh, you go from Return of the Jedi to New Hope that will lead back into Return of the Jedi territory. Yeah. We basically watched the same movie arc that we saw last movie.
We just skipped The Empire Strikes Back.
We skipped The Empire Strikes Back, and we skipped Last Jedi. Because what happens in Last Jedi, the Emperor figure is killed, Kylo Ren devotes himself to one side of the Force, Rey devotes herself to a side of the Force as well, and then the movie ends. What happens in this movie? No longer the Emperor figure, but the Emperor himself comes back out of nowhere, out of his ass, and then he brings a bunch of Star Destroyers that happen to blow up planets out of his ass. You know, they just rise from the ground. Yeah. That's the worst sequence of all time, by the way.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no logic in any of it.
And we just run the movies. And Empire Strikes Back is in there a little bit. Because we start with the MacGuffin territory. You know, it's like the Death Star plans, except now we have to find them, and it's not Death Star plans, it's the map to Exegol or the Wayfinder to Exegol, whatever the bullshit is.
Yeah, I don't fucking remember.
And then you have Empire Strikes Back territory in there because she goes to the ship. Kylo Ren tells her an answer that she would feel uncomfortable hearing about her parents. But it's weird because you just saw this beat last movie. It's like Kylo Ren's like, you're nobody. And then he's like, I told you were nobody last time we talked, but I was withholding some details from They kind of made themselves nobodies because they're actually Palpatine's son that he also pulled out of his ass while he was on Exegol.
Where?
Where? Was it when he had like microwaved face?
Yeah.
Did someone say, I want to fuck that? Like, when did this guy get laid?
Yeah.
That's a more interesting Star Wars movie then.
It was right before Samuel L. Jackson caused him to decay caused his face to decay in Revenge of the Sith. So technically, Rey should be a little bit older.
Yeah.
Than she actually looks in the movie.
You know,
if that's
maybe son Palpatine like waited till he was like 50 before he had kids or something. I don't know.
But the thing is, they can't even answer the question of like, see, it still doesn't work. Okay, what you said with in the original trilogy, the worst thing that Luke could hear is that Darth Vader was related to him. In fact, it's his fucking dad. Okay, that's the worst thing he could hear. And it's a
future version of himself if he's not careful.
Exactly.
He's confronted with, this is what I could be.
Exactly. Rey, the same way in The Last Jedi, is, and in a way, Rian Johnson kind of gives a female character even more agency by her not needing to be related to anybody of power, her just being special on her own. Either way, worst thing she could hear is that she is nobody and that she could fade, into oblivion and become nothing. Okay, with what JJ does in Rise of Skywalker, it doesn't do any of that. It doesn't. Yes, it could potentially scare her if she is direct lineage of one of the most evil people in the galaxy. But it's her fucking grandpa. Like, how much like pull and how much weight does your grandfather hold over you? But like, in an average person's life, like, it just doesn't. It's such a fucking stretch. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, why does that shock you so much? Like, it's your grandfather, it's not like your parents, and you've just been told that your parents were actually pretty decent people, all in all, despite being related to Palpatine, and you're, like, freaking out. But also, what's wrong with this reveal is this is someone that she has never personally had any experiences with. The name Palpatine is just one that she's heard in stories, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, that's the guy who is the Emperor who the heroes beat last iteration. Great. I don't know him. I don't fucking get what he's about. He just seems bad. And so, yeah, it's like hearing that. It's like if I told you you're related to Hitler. Like, you'd be like, oh my God, Hitler is terrible. But why should you feel, I don't know, like, why should you feel guilt for being alive at that point? Because you're so disconnected from Hitler. You've never met Hitler.
Yeah.
You've never been influenced by Hitler's teachings. It's like, this is a pretty extreme comparison, but I mean that is what Palpatine essentially is. It's Space Hitler.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, shit, Palpatine's my grandpa. What does it fucking matter? You know? Like, I don't know the guy. I've never been a Palpatine, and I've never struggled with that part of my identity before.
Yeah.
And it's so half-assed. Like, the Force lightning that makes you think that she's killed Chewbacca, she's just like, oh, I lost control. I don't know what happened back there. I killed Chewie. Chewie's fine, you know? What are the stakes?
As if Force lightning is a Palpatine-centric power. Like, isn't Force lightning...
Every Sith,
Every Sith can use it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
that's what it seems like. I mean, and it seems like the only reason Darth Vader couldn't is because he was handless, you know? He's just a machine at that point. But yeah, like, it's not a very good answer to that question. And there's just, like, a lot of stuff in that movie that's just, like, let's revert back to something that won't be very satisfying to hear. Like, Kylo Ren, you know? What does he do fresh off of the last movie? He's finally gained his own agency as well, and he's chosen to be bad. So what does he do? He instantly submits to the Emperor's will, builds his helmet because he actually likes it. Like, undoes one of the best scenes in Last Jedi. Like, I don't care if you're a hater. Mm-hmm. Like, him smashing that helmet in the elevator and, like, being like, I'm done with that shit. Yeah. So dope, and also great character growth. And just undone for the weirdest reasons. I don't even know if they list the reason in the movie why he's remaking it, you know?
No.
Like, what compelled him?
Yeah. Also, I'll raise you one.
Oh my God.
Something that Rian Johnson set up that I don't remember ever being really fully explained either or built upon in The Rise of Skywalker is Rey and Kylo's connection, that Force connection that they have, where they can see each other. Like, what the fuck was that? That's something that Ryan was like, hey, look at this. I did this. What are you going to do about it? And JJ said nothing. Absolutely nothing.
He explores it. He doesn't do anything story-wise with it, but he does, like, make action set pieces out of it. You know, there's the part where Kylo's down on the planet and she's up in his room and he's like, where are you? And then they fight a little bit and he's like, oh my God, Darth Vader's helmet, I know where she is.
Yeah, but like...
Or like passing off the lightsaber to him at the end, you know, which that's kind of a cool sequence. It's like, But that's all Rian Johnson ideas.
Yeah, well, it's all Rian Johnson, but it's never... It's never built on in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. It's meant as glamour and for action set pieces. Whereas Ryan used it in a way when they were to convey story beats, when they were talking to each other. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, it's so cool. And then JJ's like, wouldn't it be cool if maybe he was on the other side of the cave and he handed her a lightsaber? Yes, that's fucking cool. But it's not that cool if you don't do anything else with it, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
And I mean... In Last Jedi, there was some, like, real intrigue in there. They're like, what is happening? And then you do get an answer. It's like, oh, I was bridging your minds together. It's me, Snoke. You literally thought you guys were so cool. I literally did everything. You're welcome. And you guys are both horny, by the way. You need to address that. So, I like that part of Last Jedi, actually. Like, Snoke is a cool villain. And regardless of whether he dies or not, that doesn't invalidate his whole existence, you know?
No, yeah.
Like, he serves a purpose, and he has a pretty dope arc before he goes out. Like, you see him in the first movie, you think he's huge. You're like, what's this guy up to? You see him again, and he's, like, in a bathrobe, and you're like, psh, lame. And then he just is like dragging people around. Like he doesn't get up from the fucking chair. When Rey comes to confront him, it's just like
yeah.
And then he like bashes her head with like a lightsaber. Like it's so dope. And like of course like that's the Emperor in a nutshell. Is like he just sat in his chair the whole time and didn't do anything. And what did that lead to? I mean, it led to his death. So why are we surprised at all when, you know, Snoke is doing the same thing and he's killed? Like, really? He didn't see that? Like, you guys think that's not a satisfying way to end that character? Like, someone who clearly has flaws and, like, a misconstrued sense of logic that they can control Kylo Ren, who's already proven himself, even in JJ's version, to be an unstable character. Like, you don't know where he's going. He's so fucking unstable that his lightsaber, like, crackles.
Yeah.
And has side, like, jets, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking
cool.
And it's also just such a great way to personify
a character.
that
Yeah.
And, I mean, that was a JJ idea.
Snoke went out in, like, the coolest way possible. He got cut in half.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. Like, what's not to like?
And I mean, even the Praetorian Guards in the chamber, when they fight them, like, there's no lightsaber fight in Last Jedi. And people are like, oh my god, it's the only one without a lightsaber fight. But I would take that fight scene in Last Jedi over, like, any of the lightsaber fights in Rise of Skywalker. Like, they have no weight to them. Yeah. They like, duke it out on the Star Destroyer for, like, a second.
Yeah.
And then they also duke it out on the Death Star. And it's, like, very, like, floaty. The stakes aren't that great. Like, even, like, the characters that you want to care about, like Finn, are just so vastly removed from the fight that you're not even sure it affects them. Like, I don't know. It's weird because in The Force Awakens, JJ has that fight scene and, like, Rey is not doing too hot. She gets knocked out, like, from the start. So you're like, okay, Finn's gonna fight. This guy's a Jedi. And then he gets his ass kicked and he gets, like, his spine cut open. And you're like, oh my god, dude, is he dead?
Yeah.
Like, there are stakes there.
Yeah.
And J.J. Abrams clearly has an understanding of stakes. But, like, all of them go out the window in this movie. Like, the only characters that die are ones that you don't care about or he lost his, like, interest in. Yeah. Let's talk about General Hux for a second.
Oh, my God.
What the fuck is up with that character in this trilogy? Like, he starts off as, like, a Nazi in Force Awakens. His hate for Kylo Ren is brought to, like, the ultimate point in Last Jedi. Like, he has to work under that guy now. He has no more authority over him. And now, in this movie, what's the culmination of all that character building? Is just that, like, he lets them go in one scene, says, I hate Kylo Ren, and then gets shot to death. For a new random British guy that we don't even know. Like, that's another thing that pisses me off, is, like, not only is Palpatine just dredged up, but they're like, okay, it's time for new villains. Knights of Ren, boom, who don't do anything. General Pride, who is some guy you've never fucking heard about, who's apparently been in the old Empire, who's like, I'll do my bidding for you, master.
I forgot about him.
See, he's such a pointless character that you would not be faulted to forget about him if you haven't seen the movie in a while.
Yeah, no, I General Hux is the character that between all three movies, they're obviously like, whoa, I gotta kind of rewrite some aspects of this character, and this character needs. The General Hux is the one character that they fucking flipped out on, I bet. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, we have to change his motive 3 different times. It is completely different in every single movie. Like, the way he acts. Like, in the first movie, I feel like he was more comic relief in Last Jedi than he even was in The Force Awakens.
Because in The Force Awakens, he's like, the First Order destroys planets! And then it's like, pew, pew, pew.
Yeah.
And then how does Last Jedi start? It's like your mother.
It's a your mom joke. Like,
and he's like,
yeah.
He definitely turns into a whiny character in that movie.
Like,
I don't love it.
Domhnall Gleeson deserves so much better. Yeah. The actor who portrayed that.
Yeah, he got fucked over.
Yeah.
And speaking of people who got fucked over,
Rose.
Rose got fucked over. I would argue Poe.
Dameron. I would argue Finn got fucked over too.
Finn definitely the most.
Yeah.
You start from a guy who's like one of the central characters, and it's so encouraging to see because a person of color has never really taken that role in Star Wars. And he gets demoted each movie until finally in Rise of Skywalker, what's he doing? He's running around and just yelling like, "Way!"
Yeah, and he's like, I'm force sensitive, by the way.
Oh, he doesn't even say that though. He says, "I have something to tell you later," and then he never tells her.
Yeah.
That's what's in the theatrical cut. Like, it's an abomination that you have to look up an interview with the director to see everything that's supposed to be in the movie. Or, like, the fact that the people on Exegol are, like, Sith ghosts. Like, you have to read, like, a Yahoo article about that from, like, a comment from Kathleen Kennedy being like, oh, yeah, they're ghosts, by the way.
What even... I just can't, like... Star Wars... lore infuriates me. It's because with each frame of even like The Mandalorian, you got a Reddit thread, an entire Reddit discussion post about each frame, about talking about why this is the way it is. And it's like, if you're a Star Wars director or a writer, holy shit, you have a insurmountable like hill to climb, you know, to please everybody and to not undo something that's supposedly canon. You know what I'm saying? There's so much Star Wars lore. And it's clear that, you know, I mean, JJ and Ryan, they obviously know their lore at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, but holy shit. Just the sheer amount of fuckery within that universe that it's just insane to me.
Like, at the end of the day, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think Last Jedi is like a masterpiece. In fact, I think it's a pretty flawed movie. Like,
definitely, I
would say of its 3 storylines, one of them is very good and the other 2 are like,
one's awful and then the other one's okay and then the one's good. That's how I think of it.
I will say that it's weird that people go to Finn and Rose's one to shit on, because I think Poe's is pretty bad too.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah, it's all bad.
Yeah, like, I mean, none of them are, like, that great. And I think that's why, like, when people are shitting on Last Jedi, I think it's so weird that they go for, like, the Luke angle or, like, you know, Rey's parentage or, like, the fact that Snoke died. I mean, like, sure, a lot of people unfairly bully Kelly Marie Tran and say, like, oh, Rose is the reason this movie's terrible. But, like, that's not the problem. It's like you have underdeveloped characters doing pointless storylines that ultimately, because how the trilogy ends, don't have any meaning. Like, Finn and Poe's arc are made worse by Rise of Skywalker because it's a movie that completely invalidates anything that happened in Last Jedi. And that's what's probably the most frustrating thing about the movie, is that for as original as it wanted to be and as, like, bold as it was trying to go, like, it failed in a lot of ways, and then a lot of its value rested on what came next. Like, it was all in that lightsaber pass off.
Yeah.
And the fact that it didn't go well invalidates that movie, it invalidates The Force Awakens, and it makes the whole sequel trilogy weak in comparison to everything else. Like, because, I mean, I don't think there was a ton of story mapping that took place in any point of Star Wars. No. But if you at least look at the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, like, there does seem to be at least the same ideas behind each. That hero's journey, at least. And this is what's so weird about the sequel trilogy, is you start the hero's journey, you stop the hero's journey, just to start it back up again. Yeah. You know? And it's like such a weird roller coaster, and conceptually it sounds very interesting, but in execution it's just like, what was the point in the end? Like, honestly, I hate to say it, but it feels like, to me, with just Rise of Skywalker, the whole existence of the sequels is invalidated. Like, why do they exist?
Yeah. And that's on God. I'm just kidding.
That's Cap.
That's Cap.
Wait, that's not... No Cap. No Cap.
No, you're right. I feel like I can't watch the sequel trilogy anymore. I mean, I'll still watch Force Awakens probably, but it's like I'll stop there. So I have this feeling with Star Wars the same way I think about the Fallout series, right?
Yeah.
I play Fallout 3 a little bit, and I play New Vegas.
A lot of it. And then I just ignore everything that come after, and I'm just stuck. I'm like,
wonder what happens next in the Wasteland. It's the same thing with Star Wars. After the original trilogy's over, I'm like, hope they're all doing good. I wonder what's happening, because I will not fucking acknowledge that is the answer we get, is that trilogy. You know, I don't.
Sad.
It is sad. I don't like it. I remember being very upset coming out of Rise of Skywalker. Like, I enjoyed some things that it did, but there was more things to hate about it than now thinking.
Oh man,
There's probably
you really pissed off the Star Wars fanboys in the living room.
They're really mad. No, now that I thinking back on it now though, there's nothing to like about Rise of Skywalker for me. Nothing at all. And
same here.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that one part with Han Solo is pretty nice for a second. But even that's got like fan service. Like he's like, I know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just a dumb way to end it. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Hey, we were gonna talk about Invincible, but there's not really time this week.
Yeah.
I guess it's worth noting we're going on a hiatus this next week. Probably.
Yeah. Probably. Maybe. We might be able to get it out before next Tuesday.
Haha, Casey was a dumbass and forgot to edit this episode before he went on vacation out of state for an entire week. You may shame him on social media if you would like.
And, you know, maybe this ends our random bashing of Rise of Skywalker for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like we got a lot out on it.
We did. It's garbage. It's absolute horseshit. And if you, like Isaac said last week, if you haven't watched it, don't. Yeah. Just don't. And that's there we go. That's our hate.
Wow. Yeah. You could watch Return of the Jedi and pretend nothing happens from that point, or you know, because it's a pretty great movie and Last Jedi is pretty good too. You could watch the first two in this new trilogy and then just imagine.
Yeah.
If you imagine an ending, it'll probably be better than the one you got. Exactly. And honestly, headcanon, man. That's where it's at.
Exactly. Well, I think we have some really, really pissed off Star Wars fans behind this door. So I'm going to go ahead and open it.
Oh, God, yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Lord of the Rings is better. Come get me. Come get me, you sons of bitches!